You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro Sushi, Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic bootcamp, Moveville University, Pure Chiro Notes, Dr. Alok Trivedi, the Black Diamond Club, Element Mattresses, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Vita Chiropractic, the Universal Traction System, MedZone, Vantage Point Marketing, and Imaging Services. Let's hustle. Coming to you live from Grand Junction, Colorado, the western slope of the state where no one lives. I have Mark Postles with me. He is in Sunshine Coast of Australia down under, and we're going to talk all things chiropractic. But before we dive into this episode is brought to us by this company over my shoulder, which is Legacy Wealth Management. If you guys have a chiropractic practice out there and don't have financial futures established, they will unsubluxate your financial freedom and allow you to be as free as you want to in your practice by managing your money properly. And with that being said, welcome to the show, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
So I think we're going to get some clarity about who Dr. Mark is in Australia. Been practicing for 43 years, graduated from the Fountainhead, Davenport, Iowa. We were reminiscing a little bit about what it was like to be over in Davenport, and I lived there for 30 years. So it's been really cool to rekindle some of these feelings together. So tell us a little bit about Mark and why chiropractic.
Wow. It's interesting, actually. There's sort of this often sort of cliche that saying, chiropractic found me. But I think, for me, I was traveling the world not knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help people, but I knew that medicine wasn't it, physio wasn't it. I interviewed medical doctors, and the question was, well, what do you do, and why do you do it? And well, they could tell me what they did, but they couldn't really tell me why they did it. It was like, well, just to help people, just to make sure that people are safe and comfortable, and they maybe prevent death. So it's like, it wasn't that inspiring. So as a 19-year-old, hitched around the world, ended up in Vancouver, Canada, hooked up with a couple of guys one night who were, as it turned out, students at Palmer College. And we sat down in a little pub in Gastown called Gatsy Jack's and put down a few beers, and they told me all about this thing called chiropractic. And right then and there, I can still feel the energy of it right now, that I said, I've got to do it. This is it. It's got my name all over it. And so, there was a saga to get to college, because you had to be sponsored by your local association. I'd never seen a chiropractor. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was. So, I went back to New Zealand, where I was from, picked apples to get $80 to then get on a ship to Australia, got a ship to Sydney, and then hitchhiked across Australia to the mines in the west, because I knew I could earn money there to get to chiropractic college. So worked there for 6 months in the mines, worked 12, 13 hours a day to get the money, to then get back and get on another ship to get up to the States. So I arrived there, with my little kit in 72, and this place called Palmer College. I never knew what Iowa was, but we found it. And so that was sort of the story. So I didn't actually get adjusted. I wasn't adjusted until the guys that told me about chiropractic were there, and they adjusted me in probably about 3 months into it. So, and I still remember that first adjustment. So, far out, But it wasn't. It was interesting though, because it wasn't about the adjustment. It wasn't about recovering from some calamity. It wasn't about some family member having a miracle. For me, it was a resonance of, hey, this sits with me. This is what's got my name on it. So yeah, it was a fascinating journey of entry into the profession, I think, and I feel fortunate for that, because it's not about the therapeutic nature then of chiropractic. It's about the idea, the vision of possibility for humanity that chiropractic contains in such a beautiful and clean way.
Yeah, the story just touches me. I know so many people that go through this world and they have things handed to them. But I know that the victory is much more, the appetite is much greater when you worked in the mines for the 6 months and when you bought your $80 ticket to go across to Australia and you hitchhiked, and the journey continued to this little gem on the Mississippi River, which we call Davenport, Iowa, where Palmer Land sits, where we've produced the greatest chiropractors of our time. I got hairs on my arms standing up right now, but we've produced the greatest chiropractors of our time out of that school. And those people went on to start other schools. And the reason the chiropractor even has a foot to stand on is because of that school, Palmer College of Chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa, where you found where it was and you went and you joined. A lot of people know this quote, if you build it, they will come, from Field of Dreams. And I think that's what Didi did. He built it and then they came. And then BJ refined it and then they came. And then the world started supporting this big idea of chiropractic that started amongst the cornfields on the Mississippi River.
It was an amazing place. It was it was incredible. It was scary. It was hard. It was it was tough. We were keeping one jump ahead of the immigration department all the time. Most of us foreigners. Most of us were pushing the boundaries of working illegally. And we every now and then there were raids and so forth on Chiro students, and people got sent home, but you come back again, and it was a journey that produced a camaraderie. There's I think at the time about 47 different nationalities at Palmer. I don't know how it is now, but there were a lot of foreign students there, and we did all the shit jobs around the place, but that was okay. We didn't mind that. I loaded trucks at Roadway and cleaned pits at a meat cutting plant, and there was bar work and there was the case and gear and so forth. That but the students would work all night and go to school during the day. It was just what you did. So that was it was an amazing time for breeding a group of people who were cemented by a vision, and there were very, very huge differences in their backgrounds, but the purpose was one. It was there for chiropractic.
So then you finished Palmer. What's next for you? What did you do?
Well, from New Zealand, I went back there and back to New Zealand at the time, and New Zealand was fairly insular at that point, and still is such a beautiful little paradise there. And I thought, well, I'll interview chiros and find out where they're at and what the vibe is. So my wife and I, Jackie and I, went to the south of the North Island, and we visited 35 chiropractors throughout the whole of the North Island. And I just got an idea about where they're at and so forth. And there was a sort of a mixed responses. It was like, things aren't as good as they could be here and so forth. And it was not very vibrant. And so I thought, okay, so let's go over to Australia and we'll just check it out there. And so I landed in Australia, and there was a very different attitude going on at that point in time. And it was like, hey, come and join us. Come and we'll help you set up down the road if you want. We need chiros. We just, we really, really need to grow here. And so that made my mind up, and we ended up doing some locums, which is like relief practice, and then going in a partnership with a chiro from scratch, which was probably an unusual thing to do because he'd been in practice for about 15 years at the time. Had a really great practice, and he just wanted to have companionship there, So that was the beginning of it, and ended up from there taking about 8 years in a partnership of a practice, and then we bought out our share and started taking an associate. So at that point in time was the beginning of an associate model that we have developed over the years, and 50 odd associates in that period of time. Relocating, I actually had the opportunity to come back to the States for a few years in early 90s. So got a chance to we're doing work on developing software that tracks chiropractic. It was one of those midlife things. It's like, okay, what can I do? Stay in the profession, get an idea of what's going on, because we've been involved with Guy Reitman and Easy, as he was called back then, and Joe Fleeser. So we brought the Renaissance program down to Australia back in 76. And every year they came down. And so we'd build up the Renaissance, and then it became Quest. And so at the end of that era, when they said, well, run it yourselves and so forth. So we sort of set up the structure of that on return from the States. But in the States, I got a chance to go into lots of different offices and track their flow. We're looking at how information flow goes through an office, through a practice. And I was just blown away by the way that insurance had driven the chiropractic profession. And it was like just not the pure essence of chiropractic that we knew, because we didn't have insurance. So we've always been cash. It's never, you just don't do that. So it's been like, wow, that was amazing with all these super bills and the way that people were charging for every individual item. And it's just like, it was just not about connecting with people and adjusting them and allowing the innate to do its work. So it's like, oh wow, this is quite amazing. I don't want this to happen in Australia. So that was a major push then through the 90s for me, is to set up educational structures for chiros, and we're doing this through a coaching model and seminars and so forth on the back of the Quest program. So we offered that and developed that. And then I started to realize, well, that, and I'll just go back a little backtrack here. In the early 70s, when I graduated, the Australian chiropractors were so expansive and so receptive to chiropractic, said, look, we need to have more credibility. We need to have more acclaim here. So let's see if we can get into the university. Let's see if we can put the chiropractic curriculum into the university, and then we'll have research and we'll have esteem from the universities, and it'll be so cool. So what happens is we took our sacred trust and we put it into the universities, and they trashed it. It was just like, they within years, the chiropractic associations had lost control of the content and the direction and the course advisory and all that sort of stuff shifted into the power of the university. And that's been in my opinion, a downward spiral ever since then. And rather than the private system we have in the States, we had a public system. And when the public purse was driving chiropractic, and what it was defining chiropractic. So that's sort of the backstory of that, is that the graduates started to become less and less chirocentric. See, so for me, one of the greatest contributions that I could make at that point was then to get into education and see what I could do to influence that. So as well as sending lots of students to chiropractic college, we sent over 100 students to chiropractic college through our office. There was sort of a strategy that evolved, where it's like, if we're going to have influence, it's got to be a long-term view. It's got to be something that comes from a strategic rollout over time. So for me, even to today, and I still actively practice as well as coaching, that when I see a baby come in, when newborn baby, it is always, oh, you've got such beautiful fingers, you're going to be an amazing chiropractor. And sort of, and they can't. There's no way out. They can't help it. So they will end up, getting the activator, and then getting the, being assistants around the table, and then when they get to 15, they come in and work with us, and then they go off to chiropractic college. But that's just the way it works. So but I think that I was doing some figures on that, actually, just looking at the effect of a long game and having a long-term vision. And I think one of the challenges we have right now is everything is so short term. It's like We hit Facebook, we stay there on the top for 10 seconds, and then that's it, and so it's like, yeah, that's cool, that has impact, and it's really important to have impact at that level. However, what's the long game here? What are we doing in terms of planting seeds and bringing about shift that's really fundamental? It's going to be there long after we've gone. So, I was sort of looking at that from that point as, even 100 people have become chiropractors through our office, well over that actually. But even if they just saw, 100 people a day, 100, well, no, I'll get real realistic here for myself. 100 people a week, okay? Even if it's just 100 people a week, there's 10,000 people a week that our team have been able to influence into getting care. And with a that leverage effect, when you start to think of, okay, if we have an influence on one chiro who has an influence on others, what's the upside of that one? I mean, those 10,000 visits a week, there's going to be chiros that are going to come out of that easy, and so the magnifying effect of that is huge. So, but we'll never see it, and you'll never be able to count it, sort of. So I think it's really important to know that everything we do, as BJ said, has an effect. It can just one little opportunity that's seized can be pivotal for a person and their future, and that's the immense responsibility we have as chiropractors. It's it's not just what we're doing as far as an adjustment is concerned. It's what we say and what we don't say. In fact, probably more often what we don't say. And the little, even the physical cues that we give to a person to reinforce the wisdom that lies within and the possibilities that person has to influence their world and to really truly live out their destiny. So I think from that position then it led me into being I thought, well, chiropractic has to be institutionalized, and within Australia, I'm sort of, is this okay to sort of segue through into this way?
Yeah. So I guess the next thing that I was going to dive into with you before you got to that point was ask you about some of the people that gave you the foundation, the mentors that gave you the foundation to stand with the truth that you believe in. Okay.
So when I think back, the key people in my formative time in chiropractic were, well, firstly, those two students, Peter and Trevor Maskell, who just told it as it was. It was raw. It was just like they didn't know much. I don't know what quarters they were in at the time, but it was, they were juniors, but they had the passion, and so the passion is, for me, the essence. It's the words, the doing, whether it's this adjustment or that adjustment, but it's the passion. So that palpable energy, I think, was a major driver. Then, of course, the wisdom of Galen Price, who did first quarter philosophy, and he just used chiropractic. It was very dry, very sort of just, and he probably gave the same class every quarter, and he had done that for probably 50 years. Dr. Cronk, and Dr. Thompson, and the great Dr. Strang, the people who were part of the institution, came on through BJ's time, and whilst Palmer was starting to go through a little bit of a metamorphosis by the time I left there, David Palmer wasn't exactly driven to the same degree as his dad was, and it was subsequently passed on and changed in form again. But I think the formative time of those people who were just doing chiropractic because they had incredible skills. I mean, Dr. Strang's knowledge of anatomy was just beyond belief. He could quote any page of Gray's Anatomy just like that. So, but it was what was behind that. It wasn't the anatomy. It wasn't the lecture. It was the relevance to the chiropractic viewpoint that was so empowering. So yeah, so those are the early times, and then contemporaries like Guy Rickman have always been a person I look to in terms of what would Guy say, sort of thing. Looking at just what's the viewpoint here, and then his proteges and Pat Chin-Timpo and people like that who have a viewpoint that's very clear and very, very well defined and able to express that in ways in which was really, really profound. James Parker, I mean, just Texas sort of can plan, but I mean, we took the road trip down to Dallas to do the Parker seminars. There's probably 11th year, so about 10th quarter students, and what blew me away on that one. And this, I think, is really important for us to recognise this point in time, is that, sometimes we think, oh, well, been there, done that, got the T-shirt off, where's the next thing? Where's the next bright, shiny object? What's the next seminar I'm going to go to? Oh, that person's speaking there, I've heard them once, that's good, but, I've heard them. Jim Parker did a Thursday night lecture. Went for a couple of hours, and it was as boring as batshit. I mean, except it was the fundamentals, just educated mind, innate mind. He's got this board that he put up behind him, and he just explained the structure of educated and innate, and the chiropractor's responsibilities, and it was the same every time. I mean, I don't know how many times we went to Parker, but a lot of times. And it was the same every single time, Thursday night. That was what it was. But what was happening there, what I noticed, is that there were the heavy hitters in chiropractic would turn up for the Thursday night Parker program, Jim Parker lecture, and then go. They register for the whole seminar, turn up for the Thursday night, go home. And it was like, hey, this, they're getting the same stuff every time. But the point being is that every time we hear something, we're a different person. Every time we see something, we're a different person. Nothing is ever the same. Never, ever the same. So, it is about seeing something from a different perspective. And I think our filters that we put on can be useful, and they can be very unuseful. And that's the context that I think is really important to practice in. That, when you make an adjustment with someone, that as soon as you've put in a force and the body has taken that and interpreted that as an adjustment, then the person is different. It's never the same.
I agree. And I've seen people change with that one adjustment. One of the questions I am starting to frame for people is, what was it like when you got your first adjustment? And then what was it like when you delivered your first adjustment? Because I think that those are some brilliant moments in the practitioner and the patient's life.
Yes, yeah. And it's interesting too, the perception of that, because my first adjustment, as I say, was from probably a mid to upper quarter student by this time, which was the guy who got me into it, or one of the guys who got me into it, and it was this profound, deep experience of release. That's all I can say. I can still feel it right now, and yet when I'm sure that he was in the same position when I gave my first adjustment. I felt like I was just this fumbling, ignorant, unbelievably sloppy adjuster, and yet the person who received that adjustment gave a similar sort of response that I gave when I was receiving mine. So it's like, hey, is it about our stories we tell ourselves? And is it all the crap that goes on in our head when we're giving that adjustment? Or is it something greater? Is there something that comes through that's beyond the psychobabble of the human being? There's something else there that when the intent is there, it comes through. Obviously, there's an art and there's a polish to it, but there's something else that's within it.
Well, there's the idea of the healing hands, and there's the idea of the detection and location of the subluxation, and then the adjustment puts the force in to allows everything to, like you said, it transforms that person after the adjustment goes into them, and you can't put it to words. It's just a feeling of knowing that you've been shifted. Something shifted inside of you that was, maybe not even causing symptom, but the chiropractor is trained well enough, even as a novice hand, to find that subluxation and to adjust that segment and unloosen that human suffering that you don't even know you're going through, which is, I think, is one of the most intriguing things about the chiropractic adjustment, is people don't even know that they need it until after they've been adjusted, and they're like, holy smokes, that changed me.
Yes.
There's a shift.
Yes. Yeah. I think, a lot of chiropractors, I think, fall into the trap of saying, well, how do you feel? And, that's not a very useful phenomenon in terms of getting a person tracking on something neurologically. If they use a term like, what are you noticing? That brings a whole different awareness to the experience.
Well, it's like, how do I feel? I feel like I'm hungry and I want to take a nap now. Thanks for adjusting me.
Yeah.
Those are common responses, I honestly feel like the body's so worked up when it does get adjusted, it wants to just chill out. The parasympathetics are chilled out because the fight or flight's turned off, and the body's starting to really assimilate into, being in alignment. And when you're in alignment, the body just says, hey man, I want to take a nap and I want to eat something. And that's pretty common. Either that, or the person's like, wow, I didn't expect for that I didn't know what that was going to feel like. So when you get somebody that's never been adjusted before and you turn the lights on for them, I've heard stories of where people can start seeing again. Like, what the heck? Like, I can't believe that somebody can actually restore somebody's vision or hearing, like with BJ and Harvey, like it's our Didi and Harvey. I can't believe that that's actually something that people aren't seeking out. They're not seeking out a higher quality of life through chiropractic.
Yeah. I think, this could be, to be critical of where we've gone with chiropractic is that we've reduced it to a modality. Now, I'm looking at a lot of the colleges now that, and particularly, in Australia, it's now just a tool that you use along with other things, taping and, all the stimulators and inhibitors and all the stuff that you add to it. But it's just like, we'll give adjustments a try and see how we go, for a given symptomatic situation. So
is that common down under right now, how people are approaching chiropractic?
Yeah, well, as I said, the education system has been taken over. All the colleges in Australia are within the universities, and they've lowered the standards. They've decreased the intake scores required, and they're teaching chiropractic as a therapy, which is simply a musculoskeletal modality that you might like to try for limited, short-term relief of acute problems. So it's like, it's not chiropractic. And
why do they even toy with a program then?
Well, there's a funding issue here, that the government gives funding to places, and so if they fill the places up with people doing chiropractic, then they get funding, they get money, and it's big money. So it's it's an interesting game, but that's what happens when the profession lets go of the control of education. So that drove me to at that point in time in the early or late 90s is we had a fledgling college that had begun in New Zealand, and it had run into a bit of financial strife. So there was some major issues happening around about 2001, and so I was asked to go on the board there and to see what we could do to see if we could sustain it and resurrect it first and then sustain it. So that began my venture into working on a board of trustees for a chiropractic college, and our vision was very much to keep chiropractic unsullied, to carry on the legacy of chiropractic. And it was tough going, and we had no help from outside. We had to do it ourselves, and we were counting paper clips. We were that far away from insolvency for a period of time, but we got it through. And because we held to those values, and we had a vision that was chirocentric, I think New Zealand College of Chiropractic now is a world beater. We've kept the integration of philosophy with our science and our research, and the empowerment of our art and our technique and clinical application. And so we've got practice ready graduates coming out of that place. We've now got a waiting list for students. So it's extensive, and so we're able to now pick the quality of the students who are coming in, because that's really where you determine the chiropractors, the student that comes in the first place. So it's really exciting. It's been a huge journey. It's been a rough ride, but it's been so well worth it. And for the last 15, 16 years, I've been on that board. It's been it's been so fulfilling, and to see every year that 50 to 70 students walk across the stage, and that they have a very low attrition rate, that their success rate is very high, and that they've become leaders and influencers in our profession around the world. You think of people like Heidi Harvick and Kelly Holt and so forth. People who are out there doing the stuff, but they're doing it from a chirocentric position. So the recent moves around that have been now to set up an Australian college of a similar ilk. So we have the Australian College of Chiropractic, which we're in the process. I'm on the board of that as well. So I'm on the board of two associations where sometimes people say, you've got a conflict of interest. But when you're serving chiropractic, how can you have a conflict of interest? I don't get it. But anyway, there's that criticism that comes in. So the ACC is, we're counting paper clips now. Just like day to day. But we're waiting for the regulator to either give us a tick or a cross, which will determine where we're going to go next. And we should know that within the next month or so. Well, we will know within the next month or so.
That's
so
exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro Sushi, Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic bootcamp, Moveville University, Pure Chiro Notes, Dr. Alok Trivedi, the Black Diamond Club, Element Mattresses, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Vita Chiropractic, the Universal Traction System, MedZone, Vantage Point Marketing, and Imaging Services. Let's hustle.
It gives us a great opportunity to start to turn this Australian situation around, and show anywhere in the world. And I know, Scotland are doing it. There are pockets of private colleges starting to sprout up. But with that model, it's so clean and clear and simple. And I might just go into a little bit about the mechanics of that in just a sec. But I know you've got to.
Yeah. Just get into the mechanics, and then I want to talk to you about the state of the press for media relations with the chiropractic truth in Australia. So let's go into the mechanics of the school, and then we'll jump into the conversation about how chiropractors got their hands tied behind them. They can't promote themselves in the media, because that's what I've heard. And I've never been to Australia, so I don't know what it's like to have boots on the ground there and to actually see like the state of affairs and how chiropractors are treated. But I'd like to hear more from you about what's happening with the media relations and the chiropractic truth. So let's jump back into the education, and then we'll transition to that question.
Well, maybe can I just go into this question seeing it's been raised, because that's sort of the dark side, and then maybe we'll take the education which goes into the light again. So we look at it from this position. It's like, we're in a democratic country, and we sort of have respect for all, and all that PC stuff, but that's bullshit. Because if you're a chiropractor, well, I'll give you an example. This week, because I have to police our Facebook site for the practice we have right now. We've got 7 chiropractors in our practice, and it's a juggle, because people get excited about their care, and they'll go on the Facebook site and say, "Oh, it's amazing! Thank you so much. This has gone, that's happened, this has changed, this, blah blah blah." And so they're giving testimonials, and so I have to police this, or we police it. And just the other day, I just got on there and said, "Okay, well, thank you so much for your kind words," and this is a number of them in a row. However, the Australian government prohibits anyone saying anything positive about a chiropractor. So I've deleted your post. Now, actually, that stays with them, but we don't have control of it anymore. If a person goes on and gives a Google ranking, or Google comment and a ranking, and they give any sort of, this is improved, that's improved, my life's changed, whatever, we have to write to them and say, "Please take it down." Well, Google won't take it down anyway, and we have to write to Google and say, "Please take it down." They won't take it down. So that we're absolving ourselves in that area. So it's probably one little area that we're actually immune from that sort of regulation, that we can actually have positive comments about us because it's out of our control. But that's the ruling. Testimonials and endorsements about the profession or about the practitioner are banned. So it's an interesting environment, but it's like majority of I would suggest that most chiropractic practices are really practicing tech. They don't need outside referrals anyway. It's all internal, so we don't do much marketing.
Well, the thing is I think that what you just explained to me is like, we have chiropractic speakeasies over in Australia, where if you know where to go for the adjustments, it's okay, but you can't tell anybody else about it.
I know, it's sort of crazy, but it's suppressive.
So answer me this question. If I were to come to Australia and I campaigned for chiropractic, and I started doing loads and loads of promotions and showing a film there, and I started, bandstanding for, the chiropractic message, and I started putting my own commercials out there on social media, and what would they be able to accomplish by, trying to push somebody out that's trying to support chiropractic? On an even playing field with somebody that's interested in getting people healthy through chiropractic, and the chiropractor can't take that power into their own hands, obviously. What could we do? Could we start a petition or something to say that we want chiropractors to be able to have freedom of speech in chiropractic? Honestly, that's the tenets of Chiro Hustle. I want to represent freedom of speech in chiropractic. And if you're a democratic nation, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And see, the thing is that because you're not a licensed practitioner, it's not a problem. You can do that. However, if there's any link on your site or any association with a registered chiropractor, then they become responsible for that content and that link. So, so that's where, as a standalone, not a problem. And we have activists doing this, practice members that say, "What the hell, that's not, and so they set up their own Facebook site and they start pushing chiropractic, but they just can't link it back to a chiropractor. So that's, so that it's regulation, it's done through the registration boards.
Well, we need to get every chiropractor in Australia to sign a petition and to go before them and say, this is unjust. We're the only nation around this world that's being pushed into this corner that can't have people supporting what we do, that they love us. And I think that's, it's basically trying to push chiropractic back into the dark ages.
Well, it is suppressive, and there's all sorts of reasons why that may be so. But the thing is, though, the beauty of it is that the simplicity of chiropractic is that the message gets through. It happens. It regardless of what's been thrown against us, and we've had all sorts of assaults against us throughout our history, but we keep coming through. The truth just speaks, and it's like, we don't. All we need is our hands, and that's it. It's funny. The power went off in our building not long ago, and I was at night, and we have 7 GPs and about 8 dentists, and in our building, and 7 chiros, and everyone else had to go home. The dentists, the path lab, the medics, they couldn't work. And it was from about 6 o'clock on, and most of us were there till about 8 o'clock at night. All we did is got the people to park their cars outside, shining their headlights into the reception area, move our adjusting tables out to the reception area. It was awesome. It was a fantastic, festival of light, and a couple of candles, and that was it. But that's the beauty of chiropractic. So, they can take away everything. They can take away our life, and it doesn't matter because the principle is still there. It says it's not something that can be contained. And so I think we're being tested here in Australia, and this is actually a really good thing, because it will cause, and it is causing, the weak to crumble. And there's so many ex-chiros now off doing other stuff because they couldn't make it in practice. And it's sad. It's so sad to see at one level, but then it's like, okay, what are we going to do about it? And so that's what the Australian College of Chiropractic is about. It's, we start, and we only want to put out like 50 people a year. We don't want to get really big. We'll do the same model as New Zealand, and we want to make sure that's quality. We want to make sure those people are switched on. So, to look at the structure of that, okay, I'll just got a little bit of backstory. As a coach and coaching, probably thousands of chiropractors over my lifetime, there's certain things that are reproducible within a practice that cause a practice to grow and blossom and become a $1 million affair or whatever. So, there's a structure. There's a structure to everything. There's a structure causes function. And on observing the structure of practices, and that was then observing the structure of a neurological phenomena within a person, I started to realize that the brain preferences that a person has determines the outcomes they have in their life. And the brain preferences are driven by their values, and they create our beliefs and our behaviors. And these value structures then give us what we have. That's our result, right? That there are 4 components. We're to break the brain up into divisions. You've got the right and the left and the front and the back. And over the years, I've developed a process called the innate model, IN number 8 MODEL. The innate model is a recognition that we fire in sequence in certain ways within our brain to bring about the outcomes that we get. Now, if the history of chiropractic, for example, and the practice of chiropractic is philosophy, then science, then art, right? To me, there's missing a piece, and I'll tell you why. The philosophy is the driver. That's why we do what we do, and that's a right frontal cortex part. That's a part that's neurologically connected with the heart. And if we get that passion, that heartfelt centeredness of why we're doing what we're doing, we take it into everything we do, and so it infuses everything. So the right frontal part of the brain then is the generator of that. The left back part of the brain is where the information goes to be processed and get organized and structured, and that I refer to in the innate model as quadrant 2. So the quadrant 2 part then is where we do our science and our epistemology. We do our understanding of how things are, our model of the world. We then take the information across from that quadrant 2 part into quadrant 3 area, which is right basilar, where we apply it as our art form. and that's our application. It's our doing. It's how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I apply this technique and integrate this bit of known information that's been tabulated in the quadrant 2. So then the information gets fired from there. Once we're doing something, we fire it up into an area which we've neglected, I think, in chiropractic. It's sort of the elephant in the room, and that is our politics. And that's where we actually take something and we leverage it. We make it better. We make it bigger. We make it more usable. We get kick-ass with it. And there's certain chiropractors around the place that do that quite strongly, but most chiropractors shrink from that. Most chiropractors want to be in their practice and see their people and be safe and be secure and be connected and adjust, and they'll work day and night, but they have a job basically. Mm-hmm. We haven't. And I think our next challenge here is to take chiropractic into that left frontal part of the brain, which is big picture. It's about kick-ass bottom line results. It's about getting stuff done. It's about having a voice. It's about getting out there and saying who can help us, and not just in our profession. It's outside of our profession. So this is I think our next hurdle, not to shrink from the adversity that's around us, but to go on the front foot and to start to have an influence by leveraging ourselves. So for me, the journey has been get students to chiropractic college, get on the board and have some influence on the direction of the chiropractic college, find a dead spot in the world where chiropractic is being trashed, and bring that model to it and observe how that changes the whole profession around, which I have no question about in the next 20 years that's going to happen in Australia. So it's sort of cool. It's sort of if we look at our science and our philosophy, or our philosophy first, then our science, and then our technique, but also our politics, and just call it for what it is. Didi showed that, BJ showed that, all the leaders, in my opinion, have showed that that's the missing leg of our chiropractic lexicon. And I know it's challenging some of the hallowed writings and beliefs in terms of the triad, but I think we have to start to look at it, because everything we do as a human being is based on our brain, and our brain controls our environment. A group of people around a board table, for example, controls the outcome of that board. A group of chiropractors in an office determines that. And so that's where you start to look at how these individual neurological functions working in a synergistic whole. Anyway, I can go on like that.
But the truth of the matter is that it goes back to what Sid Williams said. He said, on this hand is your adjusting hand, this hand is your business hand. And sometimes the business hand doubles as a political hand. So what you have is still the adjusting hand that's ripe. And now you're focusing on the business and the political side of the other hand. So together that builds that unity right there, heart-centered. And then you can start to assimilate how these different factions of the brain attribute to the future of chiropractic. And if we can start getting people on board and teaching them strategically how they can go out there and serve and become highly successful and put more money back into the system, starting a chiropractic college that is principle based, that isn't medically modeled, that actually puts out real chiropractors, now we're actually creating a stronger unity over in the land that you said the system's been trashed a bit, but it isn't ruined, and it can still be resurrected into the right light. So I guess the next thing that we should talk about is what's next for chiropractic over in Australia. I know the school's coming, but what's next?
Well, I think, if you look at solutions, often we say, okay, we've got to fix this, therefore we'll look for a political solution. Right, so government will do it, or Trump will do it, or someone will do it, and that's the end result. So I think the critical factor is the why we're doing it. So let's get behind within Australia the pockets of influence that are still staying true to the values of chiropractic, and keep that little fire burning, because that and thanks Scott for that prompt, but bring the fire, because what happens is that those little fires, you just keep them burning with your practice members to start with, and then as practitioners getting together as groups. And this is why we find now in this age a collective of chiros in a practice. I mean, from a business point of view, that gives huge leverage. So, I can travel the world and do what I need to do, and the practice keeps chugging on. It's not, and it's producing good results and good numbers, but it's done through that collective, which is much more attractive to new graduates now than solo practice, to be dumped into a practice and having to run this. Yep.
Why do you think that the chiropractic system just started developing these little chiropractic islands instead of chiropractic tribes?
Well, when you focus on that quadrant 2 and 3, that's the what and the how, you take away, that's hindbrain. The hindbrain, the back part of the brain, is about stimulus response. It's about survival, right? So it's about circling the wagons, and because it's about detail, it actually ends up with shooting inwards, so that there becomes this environment of distrust, and that causes isolation. When you take on the big picture, when you take on the prefrontal cortex, you take on the front of the brain there, that sees possibilities. It sees the big picture, the why, and also the who, because the who doesn't necessarily, the people who can do something about it aren't necessarily in our profession. It's about expertise. It's about bottom line. So it's such a person such as yourself. So you're a who. You're a quadrant 4 spokesperson. And the first thing you said about Australia is like, if I came down and did this and did that, yeah, that's the thinking, because it's like outside of the box. It's outside of the, keeping one jump ahead of the regulators. It's like stuff them. I can see it a different way. So that's what will open people up. So I think the infusions of that, which is exactly what you're doing, right, is to give chiros, as Scott's got here on the screen right now, the fire to allow you or allow us as individual chiros in our own little silos to see that we are part of something bigger. And everyone wants to be part of a movement. I don't care who the person is, they have some desire to be part of a movement. It's an innate drive of people to connect. We are part of each other. We are part of one whole. It's just that we've been educated in that quadrant 2 part, that academic arena has taken that away from us. It's just told us it's dangerous. It's all in your head. You've just got to think through it. You don't open yourself up to it. So yeah. So I mean, yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm going to start champion is I'm going to start training people how to become chiropractic representatives through microphones. Yes. And I'm gonna create a whole.
1 sec.
Yeah, I'll let you get the headphones back in. But I'm looking to create a whole division of chiropractic, chiro hustle student groups that are at every school that are all doing this. That I'm going to empower the voice of the chiropractor to be heard across multiple countries, multiple cities, multiple states, where I have a vision of creating chiropractic hustle reps at every chiropractic college, to where now we're tapping into the voice. Now we're sharing the truth. Now we're we're cross-pollinating the chiropractic message into the community. We're getting people as audience. And then what happens to what I'm doing is it elevates what I do, and it puts me into a massive leadership role that says, okay, now I have 20 chiropractic representatives out there that are Chiro Hustle agents. Now what happens is when you guys graduate, your guys are going to pass the torch down to the next person, pass the gear down, and now we'll teach you how to run your own podcast and be the beacon of information for your community where you go out there and serve. And one of the people you said earlier had an impact on you is John DeMartini. Well, John DeMartini's in our first film. I stayed till the end of one of his lectures. He did it for 2 hours, and I was the last person in that room. And I said, hey, my name is Jim Chester. I'm a very inspired individual. I'm making a chiropractic film. Would you like to be in it? One of the things I heard you say is we need more media leverage. He goes, I'm available at the Ritz-Carlton next Tuesday at 2 p.m. I'll see you there.
That's great.
So,
fantastic.
So if you come right with the message and you know that you have a game plan set and you see the vision bigger than everyone else, like the big idea, and me coming from Davenport, Iowa, I have this idea that I can create the largest media company in chiropractic with everybody talking chiropractic with one objective only, and that's to get more chiropractic truth to people, to start paying attention to what's happening, not only at the schools, but as a profession, and speaking to people to get their stories. So, talking to you today, it really fired me up just listening to how hard you worked to get to where you are, and now what you're doing on the back end to make legitimacy in a profession that is a little downtrodden. But I think we're still going to win. It's not over until we win.
Yeah, well, and I guess the neat part about this is there is nothing to change, and it's like, I think, to me, the essence of chiropractic is the constant gratitude, the constant wow moments for the perfection of human of life, and there's actually nothing that needs to be changed, except that we can experience things from a different position, and when we experience things from a different position, everything changes. So it's like there's a huge paradox there. So the more we see things as being totally perfect, totally right, there's nothing to fight against. It's simply, this is how it is, and then that isness, that how it is changes because our perception changes. And that's what happens when a person gets an adjustment. It's just this perceptual shift.
Well, I think a lot of times the people that make the policy, they've never experienced being unsubluxated. So a lot of the folks that are out there that are telling people how to promote the profession and how to live in their own profession that they have fought hard to be a part of, I think that they have never felt the power of the adjustment. So I think that it's rightfully on their end to act the way that they do because no one's ever corrected them. No one's ever checked them and adjusted them for vertebral subluxation, which I'm sure that if all these people were to actually be under care, they wouldn't make such pig-headed policies about how chiropractors can go out there and support themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one person at a time, and it's like, for me, and this is my I remember at that table in Vancouver saying, look, if I could just help one person, it's going to be worthwhile. If I could really just with my hands do something that changed that person's life, that would be worthwhile. Well, obviously, within the first 10 minutes in practice, that was realized. But the thing is that every single person is like that. We're dealing with individuals, and that's what's so cool about professions. It's about the individual. It's not about the community. It's simply the individual, but individuals make up a community. So, when we're true to ourselves in connection with that person and are totally present with them, and we read their body and we look at their signs and we adjust as indicated, that's it. That's our job. And that's a connection that has these ripple effects that go way out, that shift all sorts of crap. So, I think it's really exciting. There's a huge... We're entering a stage where science is now moving towards us. Unfortunately, chiropractic profession is moving away from the where all the juice is, but that's okay because it's gonna allow for a new profession to emerge as chiropractic, it will be chiropractic. It is always been chiropractic, and it's going to be true to chiropractic because it's backed by the quantum world and what we know about that now, which supports the foundational premises that we've taken on board for the last 100 years anyway. And it's like we've been so far ahead of the band. We're sort of lost track of the fact that we're actually leading, and we thought we were following, and we're wanting to catch up, but we're actually, everything's following us. So I think, it's such a great time to be alive and such a great time to be contributing to chiropractic. The question is, are you playing full on? Are you allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to open up, to be humble, to work with people and support one person at a time to the very, very best of your ability?
You said some really cool things there. And I think the most important takeaway for everybody out there that's watching this is chiropractic is the long play. There's so much to be learned from years of practice and years in the profession, 43 years Dr. Mark has been in. So when you think about the dropping the keys, dropping the pin, chiropractic works every time, whether you believe it or not. It's just like gravity. And when you think of it on those terms, chiropractic will be a front runner for the answer to people's conditions. Whether a chiropractor admits whether or not they treat anything specifically other than the subluxation, people will start beating down your doors once they realize the power that the chiropractor possesses as being that doctor of giving the health back to people through the adjustment. And I think that's the part that we kind of, gloss over, is that sooner or later, there will be the highest demand for the chiropractic profession that we've ever seen in the history of the profession. And the day's going to be upon us. So the chiropractor out there better have high self-esteem and better have their hands ready, because there's going to be people that will eventually beat your door down and say, I need to get checked, I need to get adjusted, and I want my family checked and adjusted too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think the key to that one is that the chiropractor has to work. It's about constantly training, constantly being on your mettle. It's tough. It's something that you have to work at and constantly improve. You never ever reach that point of saying, and that's what I call it practice. I think you never reach that point of being, I'm it. This is it. I can lay back now, because there's a constant ways in which we can do with the physical world we live in. We can improve the armamentarium that we have as chiropractors. So we don't ever sit back on that, but the principle stays the same. The principle's always there. And as you say, chiropractic always works. It's just that the chiropractor doesn't always work. And so, our job as coaches is to get chiropractors working again, get them training, get them sweating, get them, in the trenches and doing the hard yards to make sure that when they're performing, they are doing it with excellence.
So I think that what they should do, Mark, is they should call it perfecting instead of practicing.
Absolutely. Yep.
When I get out, I'm going to go into perfecting.
Absolutely. Yeah. We refer to that a lot in the office. Yeah.
Because so many times we call it a practice, but it's actually a perfecting, and everybody's getting better. And the more adjustments that you deliver, the more perfect that it gets. And the more that the body becomes in tune at taking care of people. And I think that that's when you hear about these guys and gals that are seeing high volumes. It's because that they've perfected a system and a strategy, and they perfected the billing. They perfected how the operations are on the phone. They've perfected how the operations are for, starting a shift to closing a shift to starting the next shift to closing the shift. So there's perfecting going around all over the place, but you're still practicing chiropractic.
Absolutely. And the more order, structure affects function. So the more you can have structure in your practice, that's where practice starts to become a business. And this is where chiropractors are missing out, because that's that quadrant 4 part. That's where the connection and so forth of the adjustment has to have a structure underneath it that supports it. And otherwise, it's constantly driven by the chiropractor, and they're having to constantly, pedal on the hamster wheel sort of thing. So, it's about having those systems in place. And just to give you a quick flash on the design, for example, the New Zealand College and now the ACC, is that the first year is about philosophy. It's about why we're doing what we're doing. The second year is the heavy-duty sciences and how they relate to chiropractic. The third year is about the art and the technique and the application. And the fourth year is about the commercialization and becoming real and becoming a market-ready chiropractor. And many students out there have gone to many of the colleges around the world, haven't had the advantage of that. So my advice to them is to make sure that you pick up on the voice, you pick up on getting out there and doing something in the community that exposes you, but that exposes chiropractic and puts chiropractic on the map. And I think with that, we'll come out of our little silos and out of our garages and move into our rightful position as carriers of this trust, that people get access to the essence of tech, the why. It's not about the adjustment per se, it's above that. It's like, and it changes their whole life.
Yeah, and I think we're coming up on the edge of our time together, but is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience? You just have to push the stop button with me, so that's fine. I'm fine. We can talk at some other time, whatever. But yeah, I mean, if anyone's interested in the work that we do, the innatemodel.com is a book that we wrote a few years back, and it's the fundamental basis of what I just described with those 4 brain quadrants. So it's a good read. They wrote a book last year on the education system, because I see that we have to look at how people are being educated right through the system. So we've started with grade school, and innate ed, IN number 8 ed, is the recent book on that, and it's to empower teachers to become educators and truly educate and draw out from children their individual essence, their innate potential. So we're taking the chiropractic message and putting it into the education sector. We're working towards now the next one, which is in the secondary and then the tertiary sector. So we've got the board one underway, and so I want to see the whole of education transformed to respect the individual nuances and gifts and challenges of each individual. And it can be done, it's with that far from it, but we've had so much standardization with all the testing and so all the way through, like, universities too. There's no reason why we should have to go through that's such archaic, industrial revolution education. We're beyond that now. So so there's exciting times, and there's lots of wee projects in the go. So but I just challenge everyone just to see the beauty of what we do and what we've been given, and make sure we don't stuff it up. Yeah, I think that you made some good points there, and we are still on conveyor belt technology of education, instead of elevating us to realize that we're all creatures of multiple intelligence, and that we all have different levels of learning technique, and that we all have a different level of understanding. And a lot of it's social paradigm, but a lot of it's personal paradigm. And it's important to have an educated system of people, but when people turn themselves off from it, it doesn't matter if it works, you thought it did, because if everybody's turned off from it, then nobody's turned on because of it. So if we have a system of people that are standardized to the T, and there's no individual ideology of growth, or there's no individual paying attention to what matters to that person, then that person's not going to learn anyways. They're going to just do what they want to, and we're not going to create an educated group of people that lead us when we're old. So we need to pay attention to what we're teaching to the people that will eventually take care of us, and how engaged we allow them to be, and how engaged the things that they take away from the education allow them to serve the next generation. And I think that that's where the standardization and this catch-all type of testing, it's going to backfire, because it's not teaching people individualism. It's not teaching people empowerment. It's not teaching people creativity. They're taking away cursive. I mean, for crying out loud, they took away like cursive writing from schools. They're cutting the recesses, like the ability to go out and play. They're cutting the arts. They're cutting the music classes. They're cutting the shop classes. What's left?
factory fodder.
Yeah, it's a conveyor belt technology. It's a conveyor belt technology of education, which people ask me, and I'll speak very eloquently. Is the math is broken and the education market is broken. We have to start from square one again, and we have to start a new system that teaches people how to be teachers and teaches students how to become students. And I think that until we get back to those fundamentals, then the testing isn't going to prove anything except for a bunch of paperwork and a bunch of stacks of little dots and holes. And that's really what we're producing, is stacks of dots and holes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and we see them, and this is what drove me on this one. We see them coming into chiropractic college incapacitated in terms of their learning ability. And, it's no fault of theirs. It's simply that's been the system. So that's why I've gone, right back to the beginning and say, okay, like preschool is fantastic because it's play-based. But as soon as they get to school, it's like, oh no, put away that childish stuff and sit in rows and answer questions and sit tests. And, so we want to change that. But then, I mean, ultimately, this is to create more chiropractors, right? So, to change that viewpoint, that then is going to reflect through into the secondary and tertiary education systems. And I think it'll catch on fire pretty quick. There's a lot of uptake in the education sector that we've only released the book a few months now, so it's really cool. So anyway.
Well, Mark, I'm going to close out and say thank you once again to Legacy Wealth Management for sponsoring this episode. And I tell everybody, something I've heard over and over and over is chiropractors just need to keep telling the story. So that's what we're doing here. I tell everybody we're just one story away and to keep hustling. And I think with that being said, I just want to thank you so much for sharing who you are and what your major why is and a little bit of how you got there.
Thanks, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
And I'll catch you on the next one, okay?
Sweet. All right. Cheers.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.